Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me on today's topic of Rachel Mitchell and fighting crimes of all kinds. This is a monthly review from the previous month of all of the news alerts that have been presented to the citizens of Maricopa County. And I like to share it with everybody because I know that next month we may actually have something going on that will be interesting for everybody, more than just each month I've been doing so far. So let me get started with this little guy. Today was a lot of work day. It's a Saturday. I had laundry going, dishes. I had the garage stuff. I have living room stuff. It's warm out, but not too bad, but still enough to be annoying. So been quite busy. Back's hurting, but I didn't want to not do the stream because I thought it'd be best to make sure I shared this with everybody before it got away from me. You know what I'm saying? Okay, good. So, sharing with you the Maricopa County Attorney's Office Citizens Monthly Review. And this is for the month of October 2025. Our campaign here is Report, Don't Repost. And I do like to title it Fighting Crimes of All Kinds. And don't forget, throughout this stream, a criminal charge is merely an accusation, and the defendant is presumed innocent until and unless proven guilty. I'm smelling a coffee mug. What do you think? And I hope nobody takes my idea, because that would be great if I could get that on a coffee mug and make some profit. Just throwing it out there. You never know. And if anything, part of it would go to donating for Mike Maricini's GoFundMe with the up and coming trial on November 5th, just 4 days away. Wow. Okay, so with that said, I'm going to get started. On October 1st, domestic abuser indicted for shooting. Defendant shot his girlfriend and her family members. Maricopa County Attorney Rachel Mitchell had announced the indictment of Daniel Cornell Hall for shooting his girlfriend, her brother, and her cousin. On September 13th, 2025, Phoenix police officers found 3 victims who had been shot at an apartment complex near 48th Street and McDowell. I know exactly where that is. According to the girlfriend, the defendant showed up at the apartments after assaulting her and began to argue with her cousin. As she was calling the police, she heard multiple gunshots. The defendant filed the scene but was arrested shortly after. All 3 victims survived their injuries. Nice. Too bad they had to go through that to begin with, right? So a grand jury had indicted Hall on the following criminal charges: 1 count of aggravated assault, a Class 3 dangerous felony and domestic violence offense; 2 counts of aggravated assault, a Class 3 dangerous felony; 1 count of unlawful discharge of a firearm, a Class 6 dangerous felony; 1 count of assault, a Class 3 misdemeanor and domestic violence offense. Hall is being held in custody on a $250,000 cash-only bond. Trial is scheduled for January 27th, 2026. Isn't that the day after LO's trial? Interesting. If you or someone you know is experiencing abuse, because October was Domestic Violence Month, right? DV. Please call or text the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233. Find local services here. A criminal charge is merely an accusation that a defendant is presumed innocent until and unless proven guilty. And of course, thank you, bitch tits. Love ya. Appreciate you being here. And the others that are watching. Bruce, oi, buddy. How you doing? Oi. It's my Irish. So yeah, I cannot believe that this is still happening, where a girlfriend, a brother, and her cousin were all shot. Apparently over some scenario that just shouldn't have happened. That was October 1st, literally 1 month ago. October 2nd, these are like back to back. Assailant indicted for stabbing a mother and her teen daughters. Anything to do with children, you know how I feel about that. Stop it, people. Maricopa County Attorney, hey, Toadette. Hey, Erica. Hola. Maricopa County Attorney Rachel Mitchell announced today that a grand jury has indicted Lowell Dorn for stabbing a mother and her two daughters multiple times in their Mesa apartment. Dorn is charged with the following: 2 counts of attempt to commit first-degree murder, a Class 2 dangerous felony, 1 count of burglary in the first degree, a Class 2 dangerous felony, and 1 count of aggravated assault, a Class 3 dangerous felony. Lowell is currently being held on a $2 million cash-only bond. Love that, which means he must pay the court the full amount in cash to be released. That's very explanatory, right? He's got to come up with $2 million. And I hope he doesn't personally, right? That's unacceptable behavior. Crazy kid. Trial is currently set for January 27, 2026 again, the day after LO's trial, right? Ought to be interesting. Busy week that week. I might have to linger at the courthouse for the week. Again, at the beginning, I recited a criminal charge is merely an accusation, and the defendant is presumed innocent until and unless proven guilty. So these are some horrific crimes going on in Maricopa County, but don't forget, they are being brought to justice, just like DG should be soon, as well as Low. So, October 3rd, these are like back-to-back daily events. Domestic violence suspect who ran from police indicted. Suspect was taken into custody after foot pursuit on US 60. Okay, US 60 is very south for me. It's east of the Sky Harbor Airport, assuming that's where it occurred, but it crosses over, so it could be anywhere on the US 60. Maricopa County Attorney Rachel Mitchell has announced the indictment of Joseph Ortiz for multiple charges following a domestic violence incident in Mesa on August 10th, 2025. These are all recent. Ortiz ended up being chased on foot on the US 60, causing all lanes of the freeway to be shut down for several hours. Now, I understand how much I hate like traffic getting home from work or driving to work, but when you have an idiot out there running around and causing all lanes to stop traffic for several hours, do you know how frustrating that is? And what if you don't have a full tank of gas, right? That causes even more dilemmas. It's crazy. Prior to the freeway incident, Ortiz forced his way into an apartment, threatened 2 victims with a knife, and tried to drag one of them into his vehicle. When officers arrived, he fled, leading police on a vehicle pursuit, that ended in a foot chase on the US 60 freeway. Ortiz was ultimately taken into custody after an officer-involved shooting. Don't shoot with law officers. They're putting their life on the line. They don't need extra bullshit. The indictment charges Ortiz with multiple felony counts, including 1 count of kidnapping, a Class 2 dangerous felony, and domestic violence offense, 1 count of aggravated assault, a Class 3 dangerous felony, and domestic violence offense, 1 count of aggravated assault, a Class 3 dangerous felony, 1 count of unlawful flight from law enforcement vehicle, a Class 5 felony, 1 count of theft, a Class 1 misdemeanor, 1 count of criminal damage, a Class 1 misdemeanor, 1 count of reckless driving, a Class 2 misdemeanor, and 1 count of obstructing a highway, a Class 2 misdemeanor. That's a plethora of indictments. Crazy. Ortiz is being held in custody, seriously, on a $150,000 cash-only bond, and a trial date has not yet been scheduled. I'm smelling the 27th of January. I don't know. For video of this incident, whoa, that's new. For video of this incident, view the Mesa Police Department Critical Incident Community Briefing. Now that's an awesome option, right? If you or someone you know is experiencing abuse, please call or text the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233. Find local services on our domestic violence webpage. I'm not going to recite the criminal charge as merely an accusation because I say at the beginning, and I've said it already several times, so I hope you're all paying attention. Crazy. But it is kind of cool that the video is available, right? I like that. Let's see if that continues with other cases, if you know what I mean. Posted October 6th, so we got a few days off, and now it kicks back in. Rapist gets life for SA at Scottsdale Park. James Morris raped a woman while forcing her boyfriend to watch. Are you kidding me? What kind of joy or kicks does that cause? Or what would that do for you? Maricopa County Attorney Rachel Mitchell announced that James Morris has been sentenced to 4 terms of life in prison, plus an additional 20 years for SA, a 19-year-old woman, a mere child, between you and me, while forcing her 16-year-old boyfriend to watch. Do you know how that impact is the rest of their lives? And being that they're so young, that's a long time ahead of them. I pray they get assistance, help, therapy, something. Because we've seen other people that reach like the age of 35 and still need mental health services, but choose not to get it. In July 2023, Morris approached the couple who were sitting on a bench at Civic Center Park in Scottsdale late at night. He accused the young woman of being a pregnant prostitute who owed him money. The couple said they were afraid and gave him money to try to get him to leave, but he wouldn't go away. Morris then threatened the couple and essayed the woman. Before Morris left, he stole the woman's ring, necklace, and bracelet. To what end? He's going to wear them. A couple gave detectives a description of the perpetrator. Scottsdale police identified Morris as a suspect based on previous encounters. Please don't tell me he's done this in the past. He was arrested the same day as the assault, still wearing boxers stained with the woman's blood. Oh, God. Testing also showed that DNA found on the victim belonged to the defendant. Good job, Morris. A jury convicted Morris of the following: 4 counts of sexual assault, a Class 2 felony, 2 counts of sexual abuse, a Class 5 felony, 1 count of robbery, a Class 4 felony. Morris was also sentenced to life in prison for stabbing a woman in a Glendale park the month prior. The woman survived. Thank the Lord, or any deity that you follow. In that case, a jury convicted him of 1 count of aggravated assault, a Class 3 dangerous felony. Quote from Rachel: this defendant preyed on young, vulnerable victims who will have to live with this trauma for the rest of their lives, said Maricopa County Attorney Rachel Mitchell. Thanks to Scottsdale Police, Glendale Police, and Maricopa County Attorney prosecutors Maureen Evans and Ashika Mehrotra. So I so apologize for butchering the names. Our community is safer because he will never walk free again. As you can see, there are 2 CR numbers there. So he's really in trouble. The Glendale assault as well as the Scottsdale. Yeah, Erica, it didn't talk about. Yes, he was sentenced to 4 terms of life imprisonment, plus an additional 20 years for the SA on a 19-year-old woman. So, yeah, I am very happy. It's very crazy that this stuff is occurring in my county, and everybody's county, right? It's happening around the globe, I should say. But this is just sickening to me. These were just kids, really. A 16-year-old and a 19-year-old, please. And a pregnant prostitute in his head owed him money? No. If you knocked her up, you owe her money. Right? Idiot. Stupid idiot. Moving on to October 8th. Abuser who attacked mother and child sentenced to prison. Thank God, sentenced to prison. Child was attacked while trying to call for help. Oh my God. Maricopa County Attorney Rachel Mitchell has announced the sentencing of Brandon Ramos Valenzuela to a 8.75 years in prison and lifetime supervised probation for assaulting his ex-girlfriend. I like the lifetime supervised probation. You are never off the hook, deservingly so in some cases. In October 2023, an 11-year-old called Avondale police, 11-year-old child, called Avondale police for help at her home near Van Buren Street and Deserts Road. When officers arrived, they found the child's mother lying in a pool of blood. Oh my gosh. With lacerations on her head and bruising on her face. The child's mother was transported to a hospital where she was treated for a skull fracture and several brain bleeds. That's horrendous. The child told officers that she woke to the defendant, Brandon Ramos Valenzuela, yelling at her mom. When the child tried to get help, the defendant covered her face, making it hard for her to breathe. Great. Eventually, the defendant let her go and fled the scene. That's when the child called for help. Poor kid. Quote, this 11-year-old showed incredible courage during what could easily have been a deadly situation, said County Attorney Rachel Mitchell. Even one act of domestic violence is one too many. Correct. As the prosecutors, we carry the responsibility to stand up for those who can't, and to make it clear that abuse has no place in our communities, ever. I love that. That's so clear and concise and obvious. Ramos Valenzuela was eventually arrested for the crime, and in August of this year, he pleaded guilty to one count of child abuse, a Class 3 felony, a domestic violence offense, and one count of aggravated assault with serious physical injury, a Class 3 dangerous felony, and domestic violence offense. If you or someone you know is experiencing abuse, please call or text the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233. You can find local services on our domestic violence webpage. I like to repeat that every time because it's so important. If anybody joins new, hasn't been there, yes, exactly, Erica, babies. It's so true, It's crazy. The other stuff, let me do this to help you guys out. There you go. I like to repeat the DV webpage and the DV hotline because, people need to be made aware of it and jot it down. Stick it on the fridge. You never know when something may occur, right? And I'd rather you have the information multiple times than just once, kind of like my horse whisk extensions, right? I kept repeating it for people who joined the stream later. But it's still well worth it because you had order numbers and you knew how to pay. Donate at Mike Marcini's GoFundMe. Easy enough. On October 10th, just 2 days later, predator sentenced to life in prison for child sex crimes. It sickens me whenever I see child in any of these. Children don't deserve any of this bullshit, right? They don't. They're kids. They're not even fully developed mentally or physically. So, Maricopa County Attorney Rachel Mitchell announced that David Cruz has been sentenced to 2 terms of life in prison plus 30 years for sex crimes against an 8-year-old girl. Jesus. In September 2023, 2 years ago, the victim disclosed to her grandmother that Cruz had been touching her inappropriately for several months. And he told her not to tell. Of course. The little girl and her grandmother lived with the defendant at the time. Oh, geez. They lived together? Yeah, Eric, I'm going to put this up there too. I hope they all hear from these abuses the best they can. I totally agree. Therapy, right? Just get into therapy. Talk about it before it gets buried deep down. And then you go to the dark side, right? How you deal with life. It's not your fault. Just remember that. It's never your fault, children. It's just not. Let's see, in a police for several months, he told her not to tell. The little girl and her grandmother lived with the defendant at the time. When interviewed by Mesa police, Cruz admitted to several sexual acts occurring with the victim, but tried to deflect blame onto the little girl. She's 8 years old. She was enticing him? Please. During a bench trial, 3 separate confessions from Cruz were played, including a recorded jail call where he admitted to touching the victim. The girl testified about the sexual abuse, which started when she was in 2nd grade. Oh my gosh, and bejeebers. You can't do that. It's not acceptable. You can't get enjoyment out of that. Plus, don't we all know that jailhouse calls are recorded? Come on, don't be that stupid or naive. Oh my gosh. Sorry, I'm throwing in my opinion here and there, but geez, Lord in heaven. The judge found Cruz guilty of 2 counts of molestation of a child, a Class 2 felony, and dangerous crime against children, and 2 counts of sexual conduct with a minor, a Class 2 felony, and dangerous crime against children. It takes unimaginable courage for a child to testify in court about such trauma. Exactly, said Maricopa County Attorney Rachel Mitchell. Her strength not only helping bring a dangerous predator to justice, but also sends a powerful message to the victims that victims will be heard and protected. Exactly. Good job. That's all we need to do is make sure we bring light to the darkness, you know? People need to be accountable for their actions. Jumping ahead to October 14th, shooter sentenced for attack on Phoenix detective. Law enforcement officers, detectives, anybody in that field, you leave them alone, just like paramedics, fire department, all those folks. They're here to help. Don't do things to them that's negative. Aaron Ware was also convicted of 4 other shootings. Oh, just going to shooting spree, you idiot. Maricopa County Attorney Rachel Mitchell announced today that Aaron Ware, or War, that's scary, was sentenced today to life in prison and more than 56 additional years for a series of shootings, including one where a Phoenix police detective was wounded. In June 2022, the detective was doing surveillance on a car connected to several shootings earlier in the month. The car drove up to the detective's unmarked vehicle, which was parked in a neighborhood near 43rd Avenue and Baseline Road. I know where that is. The detective saw 2 men wearing masks in the car and put her ballistic vest on. The car drove down the street, turned around, and came back to the detective's vehicle. 2 men then got out at the detective and shot at the detective, hitting her several times. Fucking crazy bastards. Ware and his co-defendant Amani Gordon, not the Armani, Amani Gordon, were arrested about a mile away. Forensics linked guns and casings found at the time of their arrest to the crime. Ware was also charged for 4 other shootings, 1 on June 3rd, 2 on June 7th, and 1 on June 11th. The 2 shootings on June 7th resulted in gunshot wounds for 3 people who all survived. Blessings in disguise. No one was hurt in the other 2 incidences. Ware was convicted by juries in 2 separate trials in June 2025, just several months ago. He was found guilty of the following counts in connection with the first 4 shootings: 4 counts of aggravated assault, a Class 3 dangerous felony, 2 counts of discharge of a firearm at a structure, a Class 2 dangerous felony, 2 counts of drive-by shooting, a Class 2 dangerous felony, 1 count of unlawful discharge of a firearm, a Class 6 dangerous felony, 1 count of disorderly conduct, a Class 6 dangerous felony. In August, Ware was convicted on 3 charges related to the detective being shot. 1 count of attempt to commit first-degree murder, Class 2 dangerous felony, 1 count of aggravated assault, a Class 2 dangerous felony, and 1 count discharge of a firearm at a structure, a Class 3 dangerous felony. Let's continue. There's a lot of verbiage here. Hold on. There we go. Gordon, the sidekick, idiot, who was only charged in the shooting of the detective, was previously sentenced to 15 years in prison after pleading guilty to 1 count of aggravated assault, Class 2 dangerous felony. When someone puts our community and the people protecting it in danger, there has to be real consequences, said County Attorney Rachel Mitchell. This sentence is justice not only for the victims, but for every person in Maricopa County who deserves to live without fear of violence in their neighborhood. Exactly. At sentencing today, Executive Assistant Phoenix Police Chief Dennis Surrender told the court the physical wounds to the detective were only part of the damage done. Exactly. This was an accident. This was not an accident. Please, I correct myself. This was an assault on the very foundation of public safety. And Executive Assistant Chief Surrender, we ask that the court impose a sentence that reflects the seriousness of the crime, and one that acknowledges the lasting harm inflicted on the victim and this police department, and one that sends a clear message. Attacks on those who protect our community will not be tolerated. And I stated before, criminal charge is merely an accusation, then the defendant is presumed innocent until and unless proven guilty. You can see there's 3 CR numbers. We recognize those. Aaron Ware, and Aaron Amon Gordon. Pathetic people. Just pathetic people out there. Hey, Sir Frank, how you doing? Yes, Erica, it is insane. It's crazy. Sir Frank, that's a valid point. I don't know how to answer it. I mean, the justice system moves slowly. The first one is how the fuck was he not in jail for 50 to life? It's unacceptable, but they have certain point criteria when they sentence, and then there's discussion between the judge, prosecutor, and defending attorney, and then they can make kind of like deals or discuss with the judge. This should be higher, this should be lower. So based on that, the judicial process kind of mandates, I should say, what the actual term sentencing will be. Personally, I think it's bullshit. I feel very comfortable saying an eye for an eye, right? Shoot him 4 fucking times. But that's just my opinion. I'm not legal advice, not talking from the law, but just crazy. Because how else are we going to clean our streets? Because he's going to be out. Sure, previously sentenced for 15 years as Gordon Dick, but I hope they never have a chance for parole. That's all I can ask, right? And bring back the pink uniform, the prison outfits. Bring them back. They got to be somewhere. Just make it a mandate. God. So moving on to October 16th, mid-month of October, an influencer indicted for reckless driving. Now we're talking people like YouTubers, right? We can relate. Motorcyclist posted videos of himself hitting speeds of 187 miles per hour while fleeing from law enforcement. I watched this video. I did. I watched it on YouTube. This guy, he was like super cool. You know, he thought he could do what he wanted to do, whatever he wanted to do it because he was streaming or something, right? So, Maricopa County Attorney Rachel Mitchell announced today that Brett Carlin has been indicted for driving recklessly on valley roads and baiting law enforcement into pursuits. Carlin posted videos on social media of himself on a motorcycle driving at excessive speeds and fleeing from officers and troopers. During one pursuit, He drove more than 180 miles per hour while weaving through traffic on the Loop 101. And the Loop 101 is a big circle around the valley. It can get you anywhere. It's the best place to hit if you're lost. Find the on-ramp for the Loop 101, hence titled Loop. A grand jury indicted Carlin for his actions on 2 separate dates for the crimes of 2 counts of unlawful flight from a law enforcement vehicle, a Class 5 felony, 2 counts of reckless driving, a Class 2 misdemeanor. A court commissioner, which we have judges and commissioners who preside over cases. So just so you know. A court commissioner set a $20,000 secured appearance bond, 20 grand, which means the defendant typically must pay 10% of the total amount in cash and post-arrest and collateral to be released from custody. That's 2 grand. That's a credit card cash advance. Video of the incidences. Nice. Ding, 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 ding. Oh, wait, I found my whistle. Ready? A video of the incidences and arrests from the Arizona Department of Public Safety. I'm starting to smell a trend here in Maricopa County, in Arizona, I should say. That is awesome. They're posting the vids. They're learning. As you know, a criminal charge is merely an accusation, and the defendant is presumed innocent until and unless proven guilty. Don't forget, everybody, that's my coffee mug coming forward. Yeah, exactly. Luckily, Erica, no one was injured, including himself. Now, I can relate to 180 miles per hour because I've been to Europe, and it's called the Autobahn. The Autobahn goes pretty much throughout all the countries in Europe, and it's a 2-lane highway. So you have the right lane, which is the fast speed, and you have the left lane, which is the extremely fast speed. There's no speed limits. So in the Autobahn, if you're in an extremely fast lane, driving whatever you want, if someone's coming up on behind you and they blink their lights, you're supposed to move to the right lane and they can go forward and then you can move back or stay where you're at. But there's no limit, right? The speed limit. It is crazy. I never got to 180, but I got to 120, and I was scared for the first 5-10 minutes. But then you're like thumbing it on the steering wheel. You got your arm up here talking to my aunts and uncles and relatives in the car, right? In Italian. But yeah, it's other parts of the country, or world, I should say. It's kind of like acceptable because that's how they are. But in America, we have speed limits to save people's lives. Move, Carlin. You don't want to deal with it. Sir Frank added, there was a guy who decided he wanted to go from Colorado Springs to Denver in 20 minutes. An arrest warrant was issued for him and was picked up in Texas average speed of 150 miles per hour. That's just crazy. Because here in the United States, even state to state, there are speed limits. Just because you wanted to get there in 20 minutes doesn't mean shit. It takes as long as it takes, as long as you're driving within the speed limit. It's so horrendous. Yes, Toadette, Germany's infamous for Autobahn because that's kind of, I think, a German term. But I was in Italy driving through to not Switzerland that trip, but to France, or even across the country to Rome from Venice. Either way, it was my uncle's like, yeah, you can drive. Go ahead. I'm like, seriously? He goes, yeah. Come on, speed up, he said. They're going to hit you in the back end and we're all going to get killed. And he's like saying this on Italian, scaring the shit out of me. But it was an interesting way to do it and legal. You know, it was legal, but not here. So stop doing that, people. Including David Gingras. No speeding. 61 and a 45. What kind of idiot are you? And you're a redacted. Hey, I'm a redacted. Don't talk to me that way. What a pussy. October 17th, not one day later, County Attorney Rachel Mitchell's statement on DERF execution. That's right. We had a death penalty case come to fruition. There are so many crimes, so unspeakable, so devoid of humanity, that justice demands the ultimate punishment. This is that case. Richard Judurf is a prime example of why the death penalty exists. What this man did in 1993, torturing and murdering nearly an entire family, was pure evil. Today was a day of justice, a final justice, not only for the memory of the 4 innocent lives he took, but also for the only surviving son and the extended Luna family who have carried the weight of that loss every single day. May this bring them some measure of finality. You know, the poor surviving son. In 1993, 2003, 2013, 2023, 32 years ago, this child is now a man. The Luna family, extended family, whatever, all of them, friends, family, even though it's 32 years later, I truly believe they're still hurting over it. But they finally, I hope, can find some closure too, like Rachel Mitchell stated. And I pray for them to be able to move on now, right? Because that, I'm sure, was something they've been waiting for a rather long time. Okay, Toadette. Germany is 130,000 kilometers miles per hour advised limit. If you crash driving faster, insurance won't pay out. Interesting, Toadette. Didn't know that. And again, I'm talking from back in 2000, right? So it's been 20 years, 25 years. So it's been a while since my last overseas trip. Sir Frank writes, Brendan Ditzman was sentenced to 14 days in jail, $300 fine, the extradition charge of $1,996, and 12 points on his license, and had his driving privileges revoked in Colorado. Oh, that's the guy you were talking about moments ago. Gotcha. Well, I mean, there's always costs and fees you have to pay. I'm surprised that, and I'm glad that his driving licenses were revoked. Now let's pray he doesn't drive anyway, right? We've heard and seen that a lot. Thank you, Sir Frank, for sharing. I appreciate that. So, some cases it's hard to believe a death penalty is appropriate, you know? Okay, same day, October 17th, this news alert was released. Domestic violence ends in murder. Phoenix man sentenced for 2022 killing of girlfriend. Oh, I thought it was 2022 years. 2022 killing of girlfriend. Maricopa County Attorney Rachel Mitchell has announced the sentencing of Jermaine Houston to life in prison for the 2022 murder of his girlfriend in Phoenix. In August 2022, Phoenix police responded to an apartment near 27th Avenue in Glendale after receiving reports of threats involving firearms. As officers arrived, they witnessed Houston retreat into the residence and then heard multiple gunshots fired from inside the apartment. It's an apartment, not a house. Residence. Okay. Make yourself feel better. Investigators later learned that a friend had come to the apartment that evening to support the victim and help her pack her belongings so she could leave. During this time, Houston had pointed a gun at the victim in front of her friend, who intervened and convinced him to put the weapon away. While the friend was on the patio attempting to calm Houston, police arrived at the complex. Upon seeing them, Houston went back inside and shot the victim as she was packing and speaking with the domestic violence shelter to find a safe place to stay. 4 children escaped the apartment during the shooting, but their mother was found critically injured from numerous gunshot wounds. She was transported to the hospital where she was pronounced deceased. Those poor 4 kids, right? Houston was convicted of the following charges: 1 count of first-degree murder, a Class 1 dangerous felony and domestic violence offense; 1 count of kidnapping, a Class 2 dangerous felony and domestic violence offense; and 2 counts of aggravated assault, a class 3 dangerous felony, and domestic violence offense. Finally, 2 counts of misconduct involving weapons, a class 4 felony. Misconduct. Domestic violence destroys families in an instant. Too often, children are left to carry. Sorry, I have to take you off the screen so I can read that. To carry the trauma of what they've witnessed. Exactly. And survivors face impossible choices about their safety, said County Attorney Mitchell. My office is committed to standing with victims, pursuing justice, and working to break this cycle of violence in our community. That's why I think she held the grand jury in May to have Laura Owens indicted, right? Based on her own actions. So it proves once again how Rachel Mitchell, the Maricopa County's attorney's office, is fighting crimes of all kinds, and she will stick with victims no matter what. I love that. Where's Marilyn? Hey, Marilyn. Oh no, Marilyn, really? I feel your anger as I keep getting my comments banned. I'm so sorry. I'm not doing it. I'll tell you that. Um, I guess do like a dollar sign if you want to use that word. Maybe try it that way, Marilyn. I'm sorry. Unless it's not on my stream. I don't know. But I'm reading public record information from our Maricopa County attorney. If someone bans me here, I would have to reach out to Mrs. Mitchell, Rachel, right? And say, look, am I not allowed to share this information verbatim? I don't believe I have to redact it. It's out there for the public to see. You all can go to the website. So I'm just saying, I don't think YT or YouTube should have any issues with it. I'm sorry that you're getting knocked for it, but it is kind of kooky, right? Maybe clean up your language there, Marilyn. I'm just saying. Kidding, of course. Okay, moving on. October 20th, sexual predator sentenced to hundreds of years in prison. Hundreds of years. Bless you, Lord. I have to step away for a moment, so give me just a moment, okay? right? Y'all can relate. Thank you so much. Just reading some of your comments while I was away. Most of the message got modded by YT, but it's all good. We need some fun hold music while Rob's away. Oh yeah, I didn't even think of that. I was humming to myself while I was switching laundry over. Sorry. I think when I hear children involved, they get a bite. Yeah, I hear you, Marilyn. That's a very important one. You're right. Because it just bothers me. You know what I mean? So I try to keep it clean, but express myself appropriately. Frank wrote, but the DV guy needs to be given no blindfold and no cigarette at 10 paces, if you know what I mean. Yes, bring back the old school justice, right? Okay, so I'll read this one. Sorry, I left on the screen, so you read yourselves, but I'd like to read it too, because I like to get so worked up. Sexual predator sentenced to hundreds of years in prison. Man targeted young children who were related to him. Related to him? Oh, Lord. Maricopa County Attorney Rachel Mitchell has announced the sentencing of Mark Allen Rodman to 334 years in prison for SAing and MOing children in Peoria. That's not that far from me. I need to roam the streets at night and just keep the police on dial, right? Speed dial. In April 2021, two family members of Mark Allen Rodman disclosed that he had mauled them multiple times from 2011 to 2014. That's disgusting. When they were around 7 and 11 years old. After their initial report, another family member came forward and reported that Rodman had SA'd him starting in 1995 when he was 11 years old and continued through 1999. That's crazy. These poor kids. It takes an extraordinary amount of courage to speak up against an abuser, especially one who was meant to protect you, said County Attorney Rachel Mitchell. I commend the survivors for their bravery and the prosecutors who worked on this case for achieving justice. May this moment be the first step in the journey in their journey toward healing. Exactly. That it's only just begun, right? Because yes, they went through it all. Yes, he went through a trial. Yes, he was convicted. He received 334 years in prison, but they're still left moving on with their own lives, right? In August of this year, a jury convicted Rodman of the following: 2 counts of molestation of a child, a class 2 felony, and dangerous crime against children, 15 counts of sexual conduct with a minor, a class 2 felony, and dangerous crime against children. Rodman was sentenced to 17 years for each count of molestation of a child and 20 years for each count of sexual conduct with a minor. 334 years. He's going to be somebody's bitch, don't you think? And they might not even touch him. He might not last that long, because I know I've heard a lot of stories about in prison. They don't like child abusers. And I don't blame them. There's even a code there in prison. People are so stupid. October 21st, not 24 hours later, domestic violence offender sentenced after brutal assault of ex-wife. It's your ex-wife. Move on. Maricopa County Attorney Rachel Mitchell announced today that Garrett Hedrick has been sentenced to 21 years in prison following his guilty plea to multiple felony charges stemming from a violent domestic violence incident in Surprise. In October 2024, Hedrick drove from California to the Surprise residence of his pregnant ex-wife as the victim and her 3 children were leaving for a soccer game. Hedrick approached them with a metal bar, forced them back inside, and physically assaulted the victim in front of the children. Once inside the residence, Hedrick repeatedly struck and restrained the victim while threatening to kill her. At one point, he dragged her into the kitchen and armed himself with a knife while strangling her. Police arrived and forced their way into the residence, finding Hedrick on top of the victim with his hands around her throat and slamming her head into the ground. Police were able to stop the attack and arrest Hedrick. The victim was taken to the hospital with significant cuts to her hands, scratch and cut marks around her neck and a brain bleed on the back of her head. That's not good. A brain bleed? That's not good. Oh, Hedrick pleaded guilty to multiple felonies, including don't do it in the first place if you're just going to admit to it, you fucking idiot. 1 count of attempt to commit second-degree murder, a Class 2 dangerous domestic violence felony. 1 count of kidnapping, a Class 2 dangerous domestic violence felony. 1 count of stalking, a Class 3 domestic violence felony. Domestic violence is about power and control, right, Laura? And it leaves lasting scars on victims and family members and family. This case is a reminder that abusers will go to extreme lengths to intimidate and harm, said County Attorney Mitchell. My office will continue to stand with survivors, hold offenders accountable, and work every day to break the cycle of violence in our community. I really feel much safer after doing this for 6 months. It just feels so good to know that these people are getting found out, are being charged, are brought to trial, justice prevails, and the length of time put away makes you feel a little safer that they're not going to come out anytime soon. I just feel bad for the children. You know, they how do you stand up to adults? You're not taught that at an early age. You know what I mean? October 22nd, teen sentenced to prison for domestic violence. A teen. So it's any age. Maricopa County Attorney Rachel Mitchell has announced that the sentencing of 16-year-old Troy Aguilar Olmos to 3.5 years in prison for assaulting his teen girlfriend. So he's 16-year-old and he assaulted his teen girlfriend. And they still took it to trial. Just like Raul Vaez. Remember that case? What happened to this young woman is heartbreaking. No relationship should ever be marked by fear or violence, no matter the age of the offender, said County Attorney Rachel Mitchell. Today's outcome cannot undo the trauma she endured, but it is a step toward justice. In March of this year, when he was still 15, Aguilar Olmos threatened to shoot and kill his girlfriend if she did not come out to talk to him. When she approached him, the defendant strangled her, pointed a gun at her back, and punched her repeatedly. Aguilar Olmos was later arrested at his parents' home. Aguilar Olmos pleaded guilty to 1 count of aggravated assault, a Class 3 felony, and domestic violence offense, and 1 count of aggravated assault, a Class 4 felony, and domestic violence offense. Again, if you or someone you know is experiencing abuse of any kind, if you feel you're being abused, call or text the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233. You can find local services on the Domestic Violence webpage. I know it's hard. I can only imagine when someone is broken down so much by their abuser, they're scared all the time. They're fear for their life or their children's. And it doesn't have to be man on woman. It could be woman on man. Don't get me wrong. And in this case, child on child, right? But I hope they hear enough of these stories and are aware in the news that they can find this, that they find the strength and the courage to do a quick text, if at all possible, a phone call, if at all possible, reach out to family, friends, someone, if at all possible. I just don't want people to be in these situations. It's not how you want to live anyone should have to live their lives. Okay, October 28th. Sorry, I'm just reading some of the notes. Sir Frank writes, but that DV guy needs to be given no blindfold. Okay, sorry, we said that one, and I did agree. Sir Frank also writes, see now, I don't understand why you some want to defunk police or prisons. Send this guy to ADX Florence for 20 years. Yeah, I could see that. You know, I feel so bad for the officers that have to deal with this, and the courts have to deal with these people and be polite and watch their constitutional rights. Okay, this is on a 5 years on ADX. Okay, the correlation. Gotcha. Teacher gets more than 180 years in prison for sex with teen students. Maricopa County Attorney Rachel Mitchell announced today that Corey, oh Lord in heaven, Kapulawa has been sentenced to 187 years in prison for having sexual relationship with two of his students. Both victims, a 14-year-old girl and a 17-year-old girl, met Kapuala in August 2021 while he was teaching at Arizona Agribusiness and Equine Center, Mesa campus. That's not equestrian, right? Okay. The younger victim reported having sex with the defendant on school grounds until the defendant was dismissed from his job in January of 2022. Subsequent encounters took place off campus, including a hotel near the school and at a nearby parking garage. I remember hearing this one on YouTube. The older victim testified that the defendant brought her to his apartment for sex on multiple occasions while she was still underage. At one point, the defendant started an online fundraiser to help move her out of her parents' home at age 17. They eventually moved in together after she turned 18. Really? A jury convicted Kapuala on all 17 charges. I'll give you a pump. One count of molestation of a child, a class 2 felony and dangerous crime against children. 7 counts of sexual conduct with a minor, a class 2 felony and dangerous crime against children. 2 counts of sexual abuse, a class 3 felony and dangerous crime against children. 5 counts of sexual conduct of a minor position of trust, a class 2 felony, right? 1 count of attempted sexual conduct with a minor position of trust, a class 3 felony. 1 count of aggravated assault, a class 4 felony, and domestic violence offense. This defendant used his position as a teacher to groom these students and take advantage of their trust, said Maricopa County Attorney Rachel Mitchell. I'm proud of these girls having the courage to come forward and stop him from victimizing any children ever again. Thank you. 180 years? I don't think he will. The Maricopa County Attorney's Office has provided resources for parents to teach them about the dangers of child predators, visit cyber predators, real risks to learn how to spot warning signs of grooming, the best way to check your child's devices, and how to be trusted adult. Sorry, I hate not seeing it. A trusted adult that they can go to for help. Exactly. We have to instill this in children at a young age and continue to expound upon that as they grow, to explain things in more detail that they can understand, and how they need to protect themselves as well as their friends, family, cousins, anybody, right? Because children are pretty intuitive. They can pick up on signs and things. But if they don't understand what to do with that, they might not speak up. But I know that Rachel held a press conference where there were representatives from like the fire department, the sheriff's department, and a variety of other representatives. And it was like a town hall type thing last year, I believe. And they talked about this stuff and the available brochures, websites, information, things along those lines. But not everybody I was thinking there was a handful of people who dialed in whatever via YouTube. They didn't show the audience members, but I assumed there was quite a few parents in the crowd with some children. I would hope there were a lot more, but I was so grateful that she did it, right? And I know I left comments on the site. I never hear back, and that's fine, but I did leave comments how grateful I am that the Maricopa County attorney is definitely taking charge about these stupid things, right, that are occurring, and making people more alert and aware and what they can do in their world, right? That they should see if they see what's going on, don't repost, report it. That's a campaign that's been going on for several years now. Thank you, Sir Frank. Agribusiness in equine is agricultural and horse. Equine is horse. Agribillion is all the things agricultural. Okay. So I was right. Equine is short for equestrian, if you will. Well, that was the last one that we had that I was received news alerts on for the month of October. I'm sure there's plenty of other things going on in the state, in the county of Maricopa, and hopefully in your neck of the woods. I really hope that you're following any news alerts and news that's going on in your area. You never know what could happen in your own backyard. And as you saw a few months ago, the pastor was crucified in his own home by a kooky man, and the kooky man gave a jailhouse confession. He's in jail, and we're just waiting for next steps. So I've been monitoring that. Also, the TSMC, Taiwanese semiconductor company that was built in Arizona, literally a stone throw away from me. There's a class action lawsuit against them. Didn't take long, just several years, right? So, and it better be under investigation by a third party. That's my only criteria, right? Not internal, not the state, because they are already in cahoots with each other by signing a contract with this company. And the intent was to become the new hub for semiconductor creations. The company itself doesn't create anything. What they do is they provide customers based on their requirements and contract and create semiconductors. Do you see what I'm saying? So I think there's a loophole there to not pay taxes in the United States of America, but I don't know. That's just an opinion. So be aware. Next month will be December 1st or 2nd when I report on November. We all know of a few cases going on. We have the Laura Owens CCMC coming up, and that's just a conference. David Gingriss's postponed trial readiness conference is moved to December 2nd. I doubt we'll have any updates in this forum, but you please watch for my future streams regarding those things. And come November 5th in California, where she's supposed to arrive in person, and the trial should take place in one day. She's pro se currently, as well as Omar Serrato's representing Mike Maraschini, hence the GoFundMe for legal fees that we're trying to boost up there for him. But that's on November 5th. I'm not going. I will be streaming that morning and hopefully listening and watching for any updates. And in my mind, I expect her to be there in person and the trial to move forward. We're down to a one-day trial, not a 2-day, just a one-day trial. So looking forward to seeing the outcome on November 5th. And I hope it's not another issue that arises where a Zoom call is made instead, or a video conference made versus in person. So we shall see. But I will tell you this, as of Friday afternoon, there was nothing posted on the Superior Court's docket for her CR case requesting travel, or if travel was granted. That means it may have been submitted, but it hasn't been granted and publicized yet publicly. That means Monday, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? Today's Saturday the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th. So Wednesday's November 5th. She'll have those 2 days to submit a request for travel out of the state of Arizona due to her trial here, right, in Arizona, and get it granted before she can go in person. Not going to say anything more about that, but that has to happen for her to attend in person. Okay? So keep your eyes and ears open. I'll be monitoring the docket as usual. If any new documents come out, I will go down and get them, and then we will be shared online. Sir Frank writes, I've been following a case local to me where a semi got pulled over by our local PD, and they found 600 pounds of pot in, as well as 50 pounds of fentanyl. It's the fentanyl that's killing me, right? It drives me crazy that it's still finding its way in. No matter where you're at, Sir Frank, it's unacceptable. People are dying from that. It's cut wrong. It's a bad drug to begin with. Even the 600 pounds of marijuana is unacceptable, right? It, these are just causing people to have altered mindsets, and you don't know how each individual person's going to act or react, right? So, take them off the street the best you can, the law enforcement, and we need to support our law enforcement because they are doing a good job overall. Yes, you're going to have a bad apple here and there. What field don't you have, right? You pick a field that we don't have a bad apple and tell me about it in the comments. I would appreciate it. But at this point, I'll be seeing you regarding the Maricopa County Attorney's Office monthly review on latest news, Civic alerts around December 1st or 2nd. And I'm sure I'll have quite a few to go over with everyone. I do want to thank you all for attending. Toadette does have a comment about Laura. I don't think she will show up, or there will be another weird issue. Toadette, it's a possibility based on her actions, previous actions, right? I'm not going to take that away from you. It's a good observation, and I think that everyone has their own perspective on what's going to happen, and it's hard not to believe that could happen, right? But again, you're now messing around with the court system, and one court talks to another court, I would think, right? The news, you saw that her case has been hitting the Clayton case, Clayton Eckert, was on, I want to say New Edition. That's not it. That's the boy band. Inside Edition and the other news outlet, News Report. So, Marilyn, thanks, Rob, for your coverage and updates. Have a good rest of your weekend. You too, Marilyn. Thank you so much for joining, and I appreciate your time and effort. I really do hope I provide you some good info. Toadette's Purser Frank. Toadette, 100%. She will try to show up on Zoom to avoid getting on the stand. Yeah, we need to stop giving Zoom credit because if we call it video conferencing, it could be any service. And I don't want Zoom to get too much credit for this because they could be sued. So let's just call it video conferencing or VC, right? There, it'll be easier. People will be like, what the hell does VC stand for? What acronym is that? Is that Lowe's new term? It would crack me up, man. It would crack me up. But I do like that I get to share these with everybody. And I hope others do the same thing. It's good information to share and be aware of. And, please visit Arizona. We're cleaning up the streets, I swear. It's a beautiful state. Oh, God. Okay. Thank you all. I appreciate your time. Well, most courts do use Zoom for these VCs. Yeah, I hear you, Sir Frank. I do. I hear you. It's just, it was from during the COVID days. It was the quick and dirtiest up and running platform to use. So I don't know if they are contracted with them or if they're just using the term because it's easy to say or what. But I guess we'll see. And call it Zoom if you want. Don't listen to me, right? No worries. Thank you, Toadette. You have a great weekend yourself. And I know I'm busy this weekend and I've got to prep for my Wednesday stream and pull together some more research stuff that I want to get done. So, there you go, Sir Frank. The only good part of Arizona is Flagstaff. Well, especially in the month of December for the holidays, to go and see some snow and hang out and just enjoy it, and then come back late in the afternoon to sunny, warm, dry weather. That's the part I really enjoy. I'm just saying, Sir Frank. So, okay, I'm finally going to let you go. Thank you so much for joining. I really appreciate it. And I will see you soon, as always. And if you know of anybody who would like to subscribe to my channel, pass the word along. See you later. Bye.